It's going to be on drainage and utilities. So we got a lot to cover today. I know we have it scheduled for an hour. Looks like it most likely will be between an hour and 15 and an hour and 30. We are recording it, so if you have to jump off, I understand. Just giving you guys kind of that warning right now. So we normally start out with going over a couple just intro pages to remind everyone of what we have available. Our wiki page, this is where the recordings will go. So this recording will go there as well as a ton of other content. So don't forget to check out our wiki page. Upcoming training right now, we just completed our last ORD training a couple weeks ago. So we don't have any more scheduled right now. So I'm sure as we get more requests for them, we'll schedule some more. But we did just schedule a survey training. It's out there on o.learn. So it's going to be similar to what we did with surveyors in the past. Just I know we have some new surveyors that started. So that will be January 12th and 13th. You can sign up through o.learn. Monthly webinars, we're coming up on the end of the year. This one's on drainage. The next one is open topics. So if you guys have any topics you'd like us to present on, just shoot us an email and we'll see what we can do about showing that next month. And then I'm sure we will get some more topics for next year as well. The CAD managers meeting, that's tomorrow. We canceled it because we didn't really have much content to show. So if you guys are CAD managers, you should have hopefully gotten that correspondence that was canceled. For our giant CAD user group meeting, right now that's still on for December, beginning of December, which we don't have the registration open for that yet, so we will get on that here. Okay, so that's just a quick overview. I got a lot of stuff, so I wanted to kind of rush through that so we can get through all this stuff. So drainage and utilities. So I showed this stuff or a lot of stuff in February CAD user group meeting. And so back then I'd said that I'm going to make some changes, and I haven't actually pushed those changes out yet. I'm going to kind of go over what the changes are and what that kind of means for people who've already started using drainage and utilities. But basically, I've had to remake the whole dgen library that contains all of the feature definitions and settings for all your drainage and utility stuff. And when I did that, I took the opportunity to change the features to align more with the way we pay for things. So instead of having a conduit of maybe a material concrete, it's now you have a type A, type B option. It just made more sense. But the big change is the pipe sizing. It now looks at the prototype to get the size, whereas it used to just look at the feature definition directly. Now that doesn't have to make much sense to you guys. You guys don't have to worry about those kind of things. The reason what was going on was you could set the size in two different spots, and there was the possibility to get those out of sync. So Bentley introduced a variable that would basically say only look at the prototype for the size. Well, all the stuff that I set up the sizes on the feature definition. So if I wanted to move to that where we don't have the possibility to set the sizes in two different spots, I needed everything to be on the prototype and not on the feature definition. So what does that mean? So making that change does cause a compatibility issue. So if you are currently using the feature definition library that's out there, when I release this new one, it's not going to work so well together. Right. So I tried to make this as easy as possible. So when I actually push this out, I'm going to make sure I kind of blast email to everyone. Try to get this, hopefully not have any problems for users. But basically, if you've already started your project, like a drainage project in ORD, then when I release these, the fix to keep it using the old stuff so you don't run into any issues is to add one line to your workset config file. All right. If you haven't done any drainage work on your projects, then you have nothing to worry about. So I did try to make it easy as I could. What I had done was I actually put into the template the line that needed to be added, just commented it out so it wasn't in use. So what I realized is after I pushed it out, I had set it incorrectly. So yeah, I had set this variable to workset when it needed to be workspaces, so that's 100% my bad. So I fixed that, but now there are worksets in there that have the wrong variable path in here. So I tried to make it easy as I could, and I kind of hurt myself at the same time. So that's my bad. But ODA employees, I can handle this. You guys just shoot me an email, and I can fix it up for you. You just don't have to worry about editing the config files. So hopefully that made sense to everyone. Basically, I'm going to push this dgenlib out, and it changes to the new stuff. But if you were using the old stuff, you just need to update your that given project that was using the old stuff to keep using the old stuff. You can just feel free to reach out to me. So I've been kind of afraid to push out this dgenlib if you haven't told the kind of this break when I push it out is just a little worrisome to me. So I kind of been holding off on it, but I think it needs to happen. There's a lot of good stuff that is added in the new stuff. So when will I do this? Really soon, hopefully. I'm in the middle of still writing some documentation, but I will put out a mass email to the DRC mailing list to let everyone know before I push it out and what needs to be done on your current. So this right here is how you can sign up for our mailing list if you're not on that. Now another thing I've been toying around with is when I release the dgenlib to release it with 2020 release 3, but I might not do that now that I've been testing 2020 release 3 of ORD. So before I move on, does anyone have any questions on that? Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. It might not affect too many people if you guys haven't started using it yet. Most of you guys are probably muted, so you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat, and I'll try to answer that. Okay. All right. So when I started setting up for this meeting, we have had, some people say that some of these meetings go too in depth or too advanced. So I figured I'd start with the basics and work my way up. So I'm going to start out with just how to lay out a drainage network. Looks like somebody's gotta mute somebody. I just muted everyone, but so in order to place a drainage network or a conduit, the conduit has to attach each end to what they refer to as a node is a catch basin or a manhole, culvert. So you can't just place, a drainage pipe without it connecting each end to something. And then as you're placing your catch basins, when we get to the annotation, it's going to pull that elevation from the way you placed it. So if you're doing like a curb and gutter catch basin, and you need to put in that depression, the half-inch depression. When you place that, I'll go over that, but just kind of something to remember. There's a vertical offset parameter that you can use. And another thing with annotation, right now, in order to actually annotate the station and offset of like a catch basin or a manhole, that currently has to be placed using Civil AccuDraw station offset ordinate, which I'll go over. Now that's not going to be long term. Waiting on a defect to be fixed so that it wouldn't matter how you placed it, we could still annotate it. But for now, that's kind of where we're at. So I'm going to have several videos here. I should have the volume off so I can just talk over it, hopefully. So just placing one thing I want to mention is that you do want to put this in a separate file. So we do have a BD file, drainage base map file, that you want to do this in just to keep it separated. And now the first time you do anything with drainage and utilities, you're going to get prompted to create a drainage and utilities project. And so it really happens anytime you select anything. So I selected the place node, but really any of those tools is going to prompt you, hey, I need to create this drainage and utilities project in this design file. So that's only going to happen the first time you go to do something in that file with drainage and utilities. And what it's going to do is it's going to copy in like all of the settings I've set up in the dgen lib. So like storm events and the prototypes, catalogs, and all that good stuff's going to get copied into this file. Okay. So I jumped over to another file that already had stuff in just for demonstration purposes, but I did want to show that you will get that message the first time you go to do anything with drainage and utilities, and that's normal. It's okay to hit it. That's also another reason why we recommend putting it off to another file. Keep that drainage project separate. So now let's get into actually placing something. So again, we're going to use Civil AccuDraw to help us place this, and kind of almost have to do that if we want to annotate station offset later on. So let me come up to my tools here in the drainage and utilities workflow. And under the layout tab, you're going to see a whole bunch of layout options. So we're going to go over the place node. So again, in order to place conduit, you got to place that node first. So I'm going to select that tool, and then we're going to select the feature definition. So that's the driving factor between everything we pretty much model in ORD. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to grab the CB3 curb and gutter proposed feature, and you can give it a name. So I've kind of set it up to be D-1, and that'll auto increment as you place more. And now, depending on what version you have installed of ORD, that dialog might look a little different, but overall it's the same. But I want to make sure I turn on my Civil AccuDraw. So I just toggled that on. I want to make sure I'm on the station offset ordinate. So that's like assist to the tool. It's gonna assist me in placing it. So now it's asking me the reference element for node elevation. So this is what you can use to pull the elevation or to place that ground elevation of your catch basin. So I'm going to actually select my gutter line to grab the elevation, since I know that's where I want to grab the elevation from. So I'm selecting that gutter line, and it's going to use the elevation of that gutter line to place the top of my catch basin. Okay. So now it's asking me, I want to put in a vertical offset? So here's where I was talking about depressions. You know, if you want that 1/2 inch depression for your catch basin on your curb and gutter, now I want it to be, you know, a 1/2 inch below that gutter line. So I'm going to type in a negative, and you can do simple math like I just did, 0.5 divided by 12. So that's going to say go 1/2 inch below that gutter line elevation. So I'm going to click to accept that. And now I can use Civil AccuDraw to help me place this. So I have Civil AccuDraw toggled on. So I'm going to toggle over to that. I'm going to hit the O key to select my reference, and then I'm going to key in the station I want and the offset that I want. So I'm going to lock those in, and then I will click to accept. And that now we have the next option is the rotation. So there are two options. There's absolute or relative to alignment. So this was added, I believe, in 2020 release 1. I believe they added this, which we all should be on. The option to rotate about an alignment, which is really cool because now I don't have to figure out, you know, the absolute rotation I need. I can just select relative to alignment. I can choose the center line as the rotation reference. And now if, you know, I have that is coming in at the right rotation, but if it came out like maybe 90 degrees off, then you could just, you know, key in 90 degrees and get that rotation set a lot better than what it was before they added that feature. So I really do like that feature. That one made it easier to place. After you set your rotation, you're going to click. It's going to place that, and it's going to place it in 3D and in your 2D plan view. So on my 3D side, you'll see that it is below the gutter. That's because we did add that 1/2-inch depression. So we can come in and we can like shoot that gutter down right there. I did go over that in the February meeting. I don't think we have time to go over it today, but maybe I'll have a video on our wiki page or something to show that. But mainly there, that's how you place a conduit. So let's place another one. We're going to, oh, and another thing I wanted to point out here is in our Civil AccuDraw settings, if you have floating origin checked on, you're going to notice that when you go to place your next catch basin, that it lost the reference to the center line. If you have that floating origin on, it's actually going to use your last click point as kind of that new origin point. So honestly, I would check it off. It doesn't really make sense to be on because when you do station offset, it doesn't make sense. Right? So if you're running into that snag, you're wondering what's going on, that's what's going on. Just check that off and it'll make it a lot easier. So I'm going to come out here and place another one. I wanted to mention that if you're going to switch sides, like place another one, make sure you reset click and choose the new reference element for your elevation like I'm doing here. Because it's going to remember that from the first one you place because you never got out of the tool. So if you switch sides, don't forget to make sure you switch that reference element for your elevation. And you don't have to use that line. You can use a surface too. You don't have to use an element. You could even type in your elevation that you want for your top of catch basin or manhole. You don't have to grab it from something. So if you reset click, you can type in the elevation. So you got a lot of capabilities there. I'm just using that line because I know that gutter line is the elevation I want to hit. But you can definitely use any surface that you have available to you, even the existing terrain as well. All right, so I'm going to place another one in here. And I think it went like 100 feet. And I'm just going to place that. So we need at least 2 nodes to place our conduit, right? So I place that in. And now we can select that node and you can easily modify it after placement. So there's a ton of properties there. You see there's the invert elevation, the vertical offset. You notice the ground elevation is grayed out. That's because it's tied to your reference elevation element that you selected. So if you cleared out that elevation reference, then you could actually key in that elevation if you wanted to. You can easily select that node and move it around. They got the little heads up arrows. You can even click on that station or offset number and actually key in a new value if you wanted to. So pretty easy to edit. So you can also open the utility properties. So it's going to give you a lot more on the utility side or drainage side. But one thing I want to mention is in the utility and drainage properties, I am making use of the notes on property for annotation later on. So the new dgenlib has the notes filled out, but typically what we use to annotate in the profile view. So if you're using the old one, those aren't filled out, but you can easily fill them out, which I'll show that later. So now I went over to place conduit, and now I'm going to place a conduit. So we're going to set the feature definition. So here's where you can see all the different feature definitions. So we have type A, type B, type C, and stuff. So I'm going to choose, I believe, the type B round. So I select it. Unless I thought I had more to explain here in my video. So after I select it, you give it that name, just like for the conduit. And then the description is actually the size. So you can see the type is coming from a catalog or a conduit catalog. That's telling me that it's using that what we define on the prototype. So the old dgenlib, you wouldn't see that. It would just be set on the feature definition. But that's what you should see. So I'm going to choose my size, and then I'm going to place this. And the way you place it is you choose the connecting node, and on that node there are connection regions set up. So it's basically saying the area that you can connect to on this node. So when I made them, I just threw it to the center of each side. On hindsight, maybe I should have just made it be the wherever you wanted to place it, but I could change that if that's desired. But right now, it's just gonna snap to the center of the side that you're on. So I'm gonna click and place that, and I will have the conduit placed now. Now I think I had the level turned off, so it will place a line in 2D and it will model it in 3D, which I believe I show here in a second. Forward a little bit. Yep. So you can see when I rotate it around, you can kind of see there's 3D model side of it, and there's that 2D plan. So what I wanted to mention is right now I got a service request into Bentley, but the way the software works is you're gonna want to set the catch basin invert last. So what I should show here, I'm gonna change the pipe invert, and you're gonna see that as you change the pipe inverts, the node is gonna move with it. So if you have the node going down lower or something, you're going to see that that's going to change when you change those pipe inverts. So right is to set the pipe inverts, then set the node invert. Now, if your node invert's just going to be the same as your pipe invert, then you don't really notice it. But I do have a service question with Bentley on that one because that does get a little bit annoying. But so that is, the gist of placing it. It's actually fairly simple to model it. So I did want to show a new tool here. This tool is new to ORD 2020 Release 3, which just came out a couple weeks ago. So we are testing that right now. It's not really in use in the districts just yet, as we're still going through and testing it. But the place nodes tool is actually pretty cool, so I figured I'd show it so you guys see when you guys get the next release what it can do. It basically allows you to place multiple nodes all at the same time, and even place conduits as well at the same time. So this is really good if you're gonna like go along gutter line or something. You just got a bunch to lay out every maybe 100 feet. So I figured I'd show it real fast. All right, so in here, I'm going to set that vertical offset if you want that, that depression added to your catch basins. So do that, and then I believe I'm going to set my feature definitions, which is already set. The feature definition at the bottom there, CB3, and then if I want conduits, you check on conduits, and you can choose the feature definition to use for the conduit, and as well as the size. Now, since it's placing it all at once, you really can only choose one size and one feature. So to use this tool, it's pretty easy. So it's asking the reference element for node location. So note it says location, not elevation. So I'm going to select my center line for the node location. And now it's asking me for the elevation, which is what we just saw in placing a node. So for the elevation, I'm going to use that gutter line again, just as I did before. So I'm going to come in here and select my gutter line. So you had one more option there, and it was the location reference. So that's what you're going to use to kind of lay out multiple nodes. It's going to follow that location that you selected. So there I am selecting that elevation. So now I can set the interval. So how often do you want your nodes? So maybe every 100 feet. So click to accept that. And now, where do you want to start? What station? So you don't actually need Civil AccuDraw for this tool because it's built into it. Kind of not Civil AccuDraw isn't built into it, but it's generally the same. It's asking you for a start station, and that's based off of that element for the location that you selected in the first step. So I'm going to select that. You notice that one's going to, a graphic's going to start popping in there. And then after I select the start, then I can select the end station. So however far down I want to go. And then I can set the offset. So how far do you want to offset from that location reference? So 14 feet. Okay. So now you get that same rotation option. And so, granted, this is where that relative to alignment rotation option really shows its power here. So I noticed that my rotation was flipped off 180 degrees, so I flipped it. So I got that rotation set right now. So I'm going to click to accept that rotation, and then one more click to actually accept the whole thing. So I should be doing that right now. It's going to go through, it's going to place all those nodes and the conduits all at once. So you can see those conduits come in as well. So it's pretty cool tool. So again, that's not in what you guys have right now. You don't have this tool, but it is in 2020 release 3. So after we're done testing it, we're going to vet it out, make sure there's no real problems with it, and then we'll see about pushing it out to everyone to have. So again, you can look at the properties here. So these are just the same as what we did in the previous video. You can easily move each individual one around all you want. They're just showing you some in 3D that they did place. All right, let's move along. Okay. So that's really the placing that I'm going to go. And now I'm going to go into, kind of setting up for sheet creation. So the first thing is profile runs and projecting those runs. And what does that mean? So those drainage elements, that network that we just placed, they're each individual pieces. You got nodes, you got conduits, right? That's when we go to create our plan profile sheets, we want to show that on our centerline profile, right? So what we need to do is actually project that onto our centerline, our drainage network onto our centerline. So the way we're going to do that is by creating a profile run. So that's basically saying, this part of the network I want to create a run for, and then we'll use that to project it on. So there's these tools here: hydraulic run from node, hydraulic runs to outfall, utility run from links. Those are your tools that you can use to create profile runs. Okay, so I'm going to go over 2 of them. The first one is that utility one. This one's the simplest one to use. You pretty much just select your conduit. So when you're in here, you can select the feature definition. So I have created some new feature definitions here that I'm going to be releasing, and it's under the profile run. So I just created 4 of them. It's going to put it on a scratch profile run level, just to kind of separate it out. Okay. So after I set that, I can give it a name. I think a lot of people do like node to node as the name that they choose. I'm just going to leave it as profile run. But all you do is you select a conduit. And so then you can just select all of them in the network. Now they do have to connect to each other. You can't go and select like a conduit that's not connected off on another side. So if I come up to the top, you'll see it won't let me select that one. It's got to still make sense. It's got to be able to run along that profile run. So you simply just select all the conduits in the order you want it, and then when you're done selecting, you could just reset click to finish it off, and that will create a profile run. So if I look over at my property or my level display, you should see there's a new level there, scratch profile run 1. And it's actually a lower priority than the pipe, so it's actually below it. I figured it was just getting in the way when it was above. So if you turn off your storm sewer, you can then hover over and you can see there's that profile run. So you're not really doing much with that. It's just there if you need to help select it to use tools like projecting a run. But if we go over to our Explorer, we go to the Drainage and Utilities section, you'll see there's a profile run. So I already had some in this file before I recorded this video, but we did just create, I believe, I don't know, it was that one or the last one. I think it was the last one. So you can open up the profile run and you can look at its profile of it. So if you right click on here, there's a bunch of different options. like opening profile model. You can even reverse the direction. You can fit to view. So there's a couple different options there. We're not going to go over all of them. Some of them more pertaining to the analytics side, which we're still setting up. So that'll be coming later. But what I want to do now is go over another one. So that was kind of a more manual. You select each one. But the first one, I got the hydraulic run from nodes. You can actually just select your nodes and it'll kind of just close it for you. So the other one is you can select it and it'll follow all the way down to the outlet or outfall. So I'm going to go over the first one there. And so again, I'm going to choose that and you can select a feature definition. Again, I recommend using the profile run ones. You can give it a name. But now this time, instead of selecting the conduit, I'm going to select the actual nodes here. So I'm going to select the begin node. And then I'm going to come down and select the end node. And it's going to figure it out for me. And so it's highlighting that drainage network. It kind of goes from one to the other. So it's a little bit faster way. You don't have to select each individual conduit. And then you can just click to accept that and it'll show up in your profile run section. Okay. So that's really one of the steps you need to do to actually get to show up on your center line. You need to create these profile runs, right? So the next step is to project that run onto your center line, because ultimately that's where we're going to create our plan and profile sheets from, right? So to project it, again in this tool you have feature definition you can set. Honestly, I would just use the same profile run feature definition. So in this tool, you're going to simply set your feature definition, select the profile run you want to project, and then select your center line that you want to project it to. Okay. So we're just literally projecting our network onto our center line. And we're doing this all in our drainage file. And that's what I'm going to recommend you do the projections in your drainage file. Technically, you could do these projections in different files, but I'm going to recommend it's just going to work out easier and better for you if you do it in your drainage file. All right, so in here, I opened up my profile view for my center line, and you now see, since I projected that profile run onto my center line, I now see that drainage network on my center line profile. Okay, and it's projected, it's linked, so if you make a change, this will change too. All right, so that's kind of the first step of setting up for sheet creation. We do need to show this on our center line when we get to plan and profile sheets. All right, so there I turned off. You see the profile run levels are showing up there as well. You can probably most likely turn those off. All right. I believe, what else was I going to show? Okay, so next, that's good for showing drainage networks going, along alignment, but what about like crossing pipes that are crossing the road? So we can do that by creating a 3D cut. So in our profile view, there's a button there. It says this is 3D cut or create 3D cut. Okay, and what that lets us do is we can define an area that we want to show the 3D model at that given area. So if something is crossing your profile, it's going to show it. So I did by method by corners. You can choose 2 corners, and you can see I'm getting everything from the 3D model that is crossing my profile at this location. And now I can see that crossing pipe come in. Now I probably don't need to show, those little levels at the top here. So I can resize it. But you notice when you resize it, it didn't really update. You have to use this refresh 3D cut button anytime you make a change. So if you resize it, come here and hit refresh 3D cut. So it's a static cut that is updated by that refresh button, and that's just for performance reasons. Same thing goes for level display. If you want to turn that level off, maybe you can turn level off, but you got to remember to hit that refresh 3D cut button. Okay, so I turn it off the ground line. I come in here, hit the refresh button. Now it shows off. Okay, that's working. All right. So that is pretty good setup for getting ready to cut our plan profile sheets here. So we should move on. Did I forget? Yeah. So again, just to reiterate, we're doing this in our drainage base map file. I highly recommend you do that in your drainage base map file, the projection at least. Okay, so we now have set up the, our drainage to show on that profile, right? But let's actually create a sheet here. So we need to set up a drainage or a file to kind of cut our plan profile sheets, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm probably going to create another file. Jump forward here a little bit. So I'm going to use the .create design files, and I'm going to create a file to cut my plan profile sheets in. So I'm just setting up my filters. So there's the plan and profile sheet here. So you have the option here to create a container file. It's like a 000 file to hold your name boundaries. And then you cut your sheets to separate files. Or if it's a smaller case where you might only have a couple sheets and you want the name boundaries to be in the same file as your sheets, then you can just put the name boundaries in that file. For this case, to keep it simpler, just to show more of the drainage side, I'm going to put my name boundaries in the same file. So when I do that, I do want to make sure that I switch my seed file to the design 2D seed because I need that design model to set up my name boundaries, right? So in here, I should be setting it to design, and I'll create that file and then open it up and add in my references, which I believe to save time, I've already set up. So I'm in that file, my GP file, and I've already added my references. So field book, drainage, my alignment, my corridor file. I made my train the active, or my train model the active train. So it made that 3D model and self-attached it there. All right, so I open up my profile view and I don't see my drainage stuff, right? Well, that is what I expect to see, right? Okay, so let me pause this, make sure I don't run out of time. This is somewhat complicated to explain, but once you see it, it actually makes sense. So what I did is I referenced my BK file, right? That has my alignment and has the profile, and I drew my proposed profile in that BK file, right? So that's this alignment right here. I opened up this profile view of this alignment. So when I do that, it knows that I drew this in the BK file. So it's going to show me what I drew in my BK file, which is my proposed, right? I did not project my drainage model onto my centerline profile in my BK file, right? So I don't expect to see it right now. I did that projection in my drainage file. Okay. Hopefully you guys are still following me. So in my drainage file, I referenced in the BK file and opened up that profile view and projected it in there. Okay. So how do I get this profile view to see that what I drew in my drainage file? So the way we do that is through the use of attach all profile views. So in my view window, there's a button right next to 3D cut, and it's going to say attach all profile views. And what that's going to do is going to say, okay, let me look at the references and see if for this profile, any of these references had elements drawn in it. If it is, then I'm going to attach it to this view. All right, hopefully I did a good job of explaining that. So let's see it in action here. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to hit this attach all profile views button. I think I even bring over the level display to show you. So right now I just have the BK Now, when I hit attach all profile views, it attached 2 more things, my drainage and my corridor file, which I forgot that I had drawn some stuff in there when I was testing. So normally you wouldn't see the corridor model come in unless you've opened up the profile view and drew something in there, but expected to see my drainage base map come in there. And now if I look at my profile view, now I do see that drainage network that I had projected. Okay. So hopefully you guys are still following me. It really wasn't that what we've done so far is we've literally created a profile run, projected it to our center line, and then in our sheet we attached that view to our profile view. All right. And you'll see that the 3D cut comes in too. So that all comes in from everything you did on that profile view in the drainage file. So hopefully you guys are following me still. Let's jump forward a little bit. So let's set up for sheet creation here. So I'm going to go to my drawing production. I open my name boundary. I'm going to choose my plan mode, and I'm going to choose my drawing seed as the plan pro, the plan side of it. Set my scale, and then I will, set wherever I want to start my sheet clipping here. So I'll just throw something in here. And I've checked on create draw, or I'm going to check off my create drawing so I can set up my profile view before it actually creates this stuff. So I'll check that off, and then I will click to actually place the name boundaries for my plane view. So now that that's placed, I'm going to come back into my place name boundaries. I'm going to go to my profile mode, and I'm going to select plane profile. For the profile side, I'll set my scale. And then now I want to make sure I change my method to from plane group, and I'm going to select that plane group. And that way it knows to use that to line up the profile view to match it. All right, so now I'm gonna check on create drawing, and another option you're gonna see with 2020 release 3 is this whole conduits only checkbox. What that's gonna do is actually force your name boundaries to basically stop at the nodes, so it gets the whole conduit. So we're not going to do that in this video, but Bentley does have a good video on their wiki page that really showcases how it works. It works pretty much how you think it would work. It just sets up those name boundaries to match up with a whole conduit. Okay, so you can see my name boundaries kind of previewed in there. I'm going to click to move forward a little bit here. So I'm going to place those, and I get this dialog that comes up. You want to just make sure that for your drawing models, your scale matches the way you set. And then for your sheet models, you want the annotation scale to be 1:1, but the detail scale to match the scale that you set. So this one needs to be 1:20. And then we'll hit OK, and we will create sheets. So I think I jumped forward there a little too much. Oh man. So you can see I just quickly showed that we have a rough plan profile sheet, and you see there's some auto annotation going on, which I'm going to go over that here in the next couple of videos. Okay, so now I wanted to, what did I do? Plan. Okay, so profile run sheets is the next thing I want to go over. So with L&D Volume 3, the recent update we had, we kind of changed the way the requirements were for showing drainage on cross sections. So you no longer really need to project the drainage structure to the nearest cross sections. In fact, the software can't really do that to begin with. But in lieu of showing all that stuff on cross sections, you can create profile run sheets. So I wanted to quickly show that, kind of how to do that. So if you guessed it, we're going to use the profile run that we created to create profile run sheet, right? So I'm in my base map file again here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some setup for my profile run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my profile run, the profile view of it, which I already have up here, profile run 2. So you can see there's existing ground actually physically along this profile run. This is not a projection to the center line or anything. This is the physical location or the actual location of ground along this profile run. But what I don't see is the proposed stuff, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually get our proposed profile and have it represent the true elevations along your profile run, not along your center line or anything like that, but actually along your profile. So we're going to make use of our mesh on our corridor, but you can make use of any surface that you might have. So if you just modeled an area like an intersection or something, you can do this process as well. But when you use your corridor, you do want to make sure you bump the design stage up to be final with meshes, because that's what actually draws that top mesh that we're going to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a profile from surface. You could also use quick profile from surface. They both pretty much do the same thing. But in here, we're going to create this profile, and we're going to use our mesh, our top mesh, as a surface. So I did add a new feature definition here under linear profiles. There's one for grade line. You're going to want to make sure you use that, or if you use an alignment one, you're going to get a whole bunch of extra annotation when it comes to sheet creation. So you do want to make sure you use that one. So proposed grade line, you can give it a name. So what we're going to do is I'm going to follow the prompts. It's going to say locate what you want to profile. So what I want to profile is my profile run. So I'm going to select my profile run. I think I was just turning off the storm tool to make it easier to select my profile run there. So I'm going to select my profile run because that's what I want to create the profile from the surface from. And then I'm going to reset click. So you can keep selecting multiple elements if you want to profile multiple things at once. So now what surface do you want to select? So what surface do you want to use to create this profile? So I'm going to come over, I'm going to select my top mesh element there to select that as a surface. Now, after I select that as a surface, I'm going to reset click to select that as a surface. And now, since I did not use the quick profile, I have a whole bunch of options like, okay, you want to create along this profile run, you could specify the start and end. I just did the whole distance. And the rest of these options you can leave as defaults. We're not going to, we want the draping method to be triangles. We don't need to add any horizontal or vertical offsets. So you can leave all of those to 0. And you'll see that it creates that profile. So this profile is linked to your surface. So if that surface changes, this will change too. So it's dynamic. Now there is a little display issue here. It's showing a green line when typically it's a white line. I haven't submitted a ticket yet, but I will be to Bentley. Be white. I found that I think if you get out and back in the file, it's then white. But it also found if you come over to your settings and you switch something about that profile and switch it back, then it comes in white. It's not a huge deal breaker there, but I'm sure we'll get that cleared up in another release. But so that is getting our true proposed elevations along our profile run. So now we're pretty much ready to create a sheet, right? So let's jump forward here because this is taking longer than I thought it would. Got a lot of content to show here. Oh man. So what I should be doing next is setting up for creating a profile run sheet. So I'm going to create another file just like I did for plan profile sheets. So same thing. You know, you create that container file, or you don't have. It's up to you if you're going to put the name boundaries in a separate file or same file. So I'm going to jump forward to save us some time here. So I've created that file. I've already added all my references that I needed. And now I'm going to go to place my name boundaries. Oh, you know what? I forgot. So another new thing in 2020 Release 3 is the ability to bulk create sheets. So I figured why not show this. So it actually gives the ability to generate, you know, multiple sheets. So the way this would work is, say you had multiple profile runs. You could actually generate the sheets for all those profile runs at once. So first thing you need to do this is to create a selection set. So put all those profile runs into a selection set. So I did put together a little graphical filter here in the drainage utilities dgen lib. It's called profile runs. If you use that graphical filter, it will actually select all your profile runs for you. Now that is contingent on you using one of those 4 profile run feature definitions when you made the profile run. Okay, so now with that selection set made, you can see I have 2 profile runs selected there. So now I'm going to come to my drawing production, and I'm going to set up my name boundaries. So I'm going to select a profile only mode here. So you could do pro or profile only. So if you wanted to stack profiles, you could do the pro. You can set your scale. And now what I want you to see is your method still station limits, but if you see the name, it says multi-select mode. So it already knows that you're in a batch sheet creation mode. Okay. So I want to point that out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down and check on jump too far forward. So in my profile view, I'm going to pretty much click. I mean, it really doesn't matter since you're in batch mode. It's just going to do the whole profile run. And so you see here, now that I've kind of clicked forward, it went to the first profile run and it gave me that dialog. So if I checked off the show dialog, it would just generate all my sheets. But since I had checked on, it's going to pop up for each of those name boundary groups here. So here's my second one. I had 2 selected, right? I had 2 profile runs. So it's going to show up for each of those profile runs that I had selected. So for me, it was only 2. All right, so now it's going to run through and create those sheets. So if I look at my models, you're going to see I do have 2 sheets there. One for the profile, my first profile run, one for my second profile run. Now, granted, if you had longer runs that would go on more than one sheet, then you'd have more than one sheet. But there's one of those profile runs. So open up that sheet, you can see there's some existing elevation, and then as long as you use that feature definition when you created that proposed grade line, it will annotate the top strip grades too for the elevations as well. So that was real quick, creating those plan profile sheets and profile run sheets. Now I want to dive into annotation here. So I will say, as I've been testing 2020 Release 3, there are still several defects and enhancements that I'm waiting for. So for starters, element annotation is just not working when you cross-reference. Annotation across references in general break every time you reopen the file until you actually open a drainage property. But I will say you no longer have to close and reopen the file to have it read the drainage network properties. So I've been in contact with Bentley on these issues, and I'm hopeful that we have a solution here coming up soon. So I was kind of a little disappointed, but we're almost there to where I want to be with drainage. So I'm going to go through the annotation and kind of what we can do with what we have right now. All right. So first off, plan view. So I have added. So this is in the new dgen lib. So I've added some element annotation to the feature definition. So what I mean by element annotation is the actual element annotation button I just selected. So the way this works is if you set up the feature definition to know how to annotate that element in different views like profile or cross section, then you can select that element and have it annotate. So I selected that conduit, and you'll see it annotated with the direction of flow, the size, and the type. Okay, again, I mentioned that type earlier. It was coming from the notes property. Size is obviously coming from the size you selected. So right here, I'm going to select the conduit. I'm going to switch the invert for the stop to flip the flow, just so you can see that the arrow will automatically change. So here it just changed automatically. So that is working great. But now I want to remind you that I am in my drainage file. So when you start going to the reference, that element annotation, it just isn't working as smoothly. So I'll go over that for the profile view, kind of the workarounds. But this seems like it's okay to put this in the drainage file for now. It's going to go with the rotation of that pipe. So putting it in your drainage file isn't going to have a negative effect. And then when you change your drainage model, it'll update in this file as well. So that's with the new dgen lib. If you don't have the new dgen lib, I do have a text favorite out there. So I just selected that text favorite. Now it won't do the arrow because it needs to have that element annotation set up. So for the new dgen lib, the arrow will be there. But if not, and you're using the old stuff, you can at least use that text favorite to kind of get started. In here, I'm just going to remind the type B is coming from that notes property. So again, if you don't have the new dgen lib, these aren't pre-populated. So what you can do is you can actually just fill them out in the properties here, or you could even open up a flex table and just kind of more tabular edit them, which I believe I show right now. So if you go over to the components tab, or no, the analyst tab, and you hit that flex tables button, it's going to bring up this flex table dialog. So you can double click on the conduit table, and if you scroll all the way over, there's going to be a notes. So that might be a little faster to fill out. This is more so for the existing projects. If you don't have the pre-populated data, that's one way to do it. So I figured I'd show that to help you guys out. Same thing goes for the nodes, for annotating the nodes. All right, so now I did set up element annotation for callouts on a node, but I'm still playing around with it. As you can see, it really just didn't. It's not what I need it to be just yet. I'm trying to get to the point where it just auto annotates all this stuff, but we're not there yet. So you can just do place label. So if you use place label, you can choose a cell option, and there's a feature name for the cell name right there, and you can place a call like that. So this is pulling from the feature name. So if I select on that and look at the properties of that node, you'll see the feature name right there, D-16. So that's where it's pulling it from. So you don't have to do your callouts like that. That's one way you could do it. But I wouldn't do the call out in the drainage file. Just for the rotation of the text, I would do that actually in your sheet or your drawing model. Okay, so that's kind of plain view annotation here. Let's jump over to our sheet file that actually contains our sheets here. So I jumped over to here. I'm in my drawing model for my plan view, my plan and profile sheet that I created. And so you can see the annotation coming through from what I did in the drawing in the drainage base map file. So yeah, you can tell that you wouldn't really do a call out like that because of rotation. You wouldn't really do that. So what I did with the place label on that node, I would do that here in this drawing file, right? So I do want to pause right here. So I'm in my sheet file, right? I have not actually done anything with drainage and utilities. So when I went and opened up just to see the properties of that node just now, I got prompted, do you want to access the drainage and utilities data from the reference file? So if you hit yes, it's going to basically load in that drainage properties. So here in the this is new with 2020 release 3 of ORD. In the previous releases, you had to actually generate a drainage and utilities project, close the file and reopen it just to see these properties. So they've kind of enhanced that workflow. Now it's saying, oh, you want to see it? Here, let me do this for you. So if you hit yes, it will then be able to access those drainage properties. Just want to note that, call that out. Okay, so yeah, compact database, you'll get that every now and then. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place a label again. Same thing I did in my drainage base map, but you really would rather put it in your drawing model here. So in my place label, I'm just going to do the same thing, and now you kind of get the text rotation the way you want it. So that's kind of plan view. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's going to get better here, but I would do your conduit annotation, element annotation in your drainage base map for now. It's just going to work out better. Eventually, we're just going to be able to do everything in our sheet file here. And then I would do your callouts in your drawing model here. Okay. So now profile annotation, let's go over that. So you're not going to be able to really do the element annotation in the drainage file like I did for the plan view, because it doesn't work like that. It's a dynamic profile view. It's not really what you see on your sheet here. Like in your sheet file, you have your drawing model. So I'm in my sheet file, and you notice that auto annotation that I had going on for my conduits. You see how they're all blank now? This is the problem going across a reference. When you place or anything that deals with a drainage property, every time you get in the file, you have to hit that like drainage property so it loads the file in, and then the fields will update. So every time you close and reopen, you'd have to do that. But that's not going to work with printing or anything like that. So it's definitely a problem, which I'll go over a crappy workaround here just to get sheets created. But now furthermore, with element annotation, just like with plan view, I can go up to element annotation button, I can click element annotation, I can select my conduit, and it will place it. But in ORD 2020-3, when it places that element annotation, it doesn't associate the fields to the conduit. So you can see I'm in here, and I'm going to right click on each field and reassign it back to the pipe, which I don't like. But for some reason with that update, it didn't know something went wrong. It doesn't assign it to the conduit in the element annotation. So if you're going to use element annotation, after you place it, you got to go in and assign it to that pipe, which sucks. But that's if you're going to use it. You could also just use place label and choose this text favorite. So if I scroll down, there should be profile, drainage pipe, I believe. Let's see if it gets up a little bit. So there should be a profile, drainage pipe, proposed and existing. So that feature, or text favorite, I'm sorry, is the same thing that the element annotation is using. So granted, I forgot to set my symbology here. So you want to set your symbology to the right one, proposed or drainage proposed text. So then you come in here and you can place it. Now when you use the place label, you don't have the problem with the reassociating that you did with the element annotation. Hopefully Ben gets back to me on why it's not working, but that's just a slight hiccup there. So you can always use the place label instead. But yeah, the element annotation is where I'd like to go because you can see it automatically annotates it. So there I did choose element annotation again, a little fast there. So I'm going to click element annotation. So I've been playing around with this. For the nodes, it's a little bit more complicated because there's a lot more information that we need to do. But I did set up element annotation on this to place. So you could use that for the nodes as well. You could select all the nodes and hit element annotation, and it's going to do that. But we still have the same problem where the element annotation across the reference hitting the drainage properties isn't reassigning. So after I place that element annotation, I got to come in and reassign those fields back to that element. So if that part worked, it would be pretty much where we need to be. So hopefully maybe the next update or Bentley has something that will fix this, because this is what we need to keep it all dynamic and nice. So now that didn't annotate everything, right? That just annotated information about node. It didn't annotate anything about the connecting pipes. So right now the software, then it doesn't expose those connected pipe properties on the node. So you have to add that stuff in. Now we can still use text favorites to add that stuff in. So here I'm showing you I have a drainage node. Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So if you didn't want to use element annotation, you want to use place labels, same thing with the conduits. I have these text favorites in here that you could use instead of using element annotation. So I come in here and I have one for drainage node proposed, which is what this is. I have one for if you have a manhole. So instead of saying grate, it'll say like rim elevation. And I'll get to the unformatted options later. So this is the same thing as using it's another way to annotate the node. If you don't want to use element annotation and reassign those fields, you could just place a label, choose that text favorite, and then place it. So now when you do that, you don't have to reassign the fields. Okay, but we still need the connected pipe info, which I was going. So for the connected pipe, the way I have it set up for the workflow is you're just gonna go into the text editor and you're gonna insert text favorite. So I have stuff for the pipe end and pipe start for existing and proposed. So this is proposed side. So you'll see there is the drainage pipe end and pipe start. And you need to know the direction you drew this in. This isn't the direction of flow. It's the actual what you drew in first and the direction you drew that. So if it's the start or if it's the end of that pipe, that's how it's pulling the elevation for that pipe. So in this case, I happen to know I drew this left to right. So I'm gonna put that in. After I put it in, since I'm in text editor, I do have to reassign the field. So I'm going to reassign those two fields to that given pipe. It's going to pull that elevation and size from that pipe. And then I just have to key in the direction. All right, so it's going east, west, north, south, whatever. So you can repeat this process for all the connecting pipes that you might have. So this time I'll add that one in. Now this one was the end of the pipe. So again, I have to remember to come in here and reassign to that actual pipe to pull those properties. And text element, I'm pulling properties from two different pipes and a node to pull all those values, but they're all still all dynamic. So if I change anything, all that's going to update. But as I said earlier, when you close and reopen the file, all these go to blank until you open a drainage properties dialog. Then it'll update, which is fine until you go to print, right? So I hate to do this, but to actually get it to print, we can't have those fields going to blank. So maybe when you're ready to print, select everything, copy and paste it, and that will switch everything back to just regular text. Now, I hate this workflow, but at least that gets you, so you don't have to go and look up each value, right? Now, the huge downfall of this is it's no longer dynamic. There's no longer linked to anything. It's just plain text. But right now it's kind of a stopgap because we can't have those go to blank every time we go to print. So hopefully Bentley will fix that. I feel like they got to. It's a pretty big bug, right? So we're almost there. When I say we're almost there, these are just a couple little bugs. Once they get fixed, we're going to be doing a lot better here. So that is kind of annotating the profiles. So you can see mainly everything's kind of driven around those text favorites here. Eventually, I hope to just get to just element annotation. You just select it and just annotates it for you. So we're almost there. So moving on, I know we're going a little long here. I do want to explain where all the things are coming from. This station offsets is coming from station offset of how you place it from Civil AccuDraw. So if you didn't use Civil AccuDraw, those aren't going to come in. The notes field, I am making use of that again for the nodes, just like I did for the conduit. So if you don't have the new dglib, those are not pre-populated. You can go to those flex tables or just select each node individually and fill that out. And I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory of where everything's coming from. But I do want to call out the conduit length. So I get a lot of comments on this. This length is node to node. Okay, I know that the physical distance, is stopping for the center, but the way we pay is center to center. So that's what this value is. So it's going to give you the value that we're used to seeing. Same thing with the slope. It's what we're used to seeing, the node to node slope. Okay, so don't get caught up on the physical drawing. The way I set these up are what we're used to seeing. Okay. All right, so real quickly, a couple more slides here. I know I said we'll probably go an hour, 15-hour half, so it looks like we might go an hour and a half. So sorry, but there's a lot of stuff here. So real quick, cross sections, cross-section annotation, just save time. I've already cut the sheets. I do want to note that we are not projecting the drainage to the nearest cross section. That capability has never existed in the software. That's something that we built with our VBAs. And with the dynamic nature of the way the software works in ORD, it didn't really make sense to move those VBAs forward. So if you want to show drainage on cross sections, you're going to have to cut a cross section through that drainage structure for it to show up, because a cross section is a slice through that 3D model. So if it's there in the 3D model, it's going to show up in your cross section. Okay, so annotating it, it's pretty much the same text favorites. So we, unlike profiles, there is not element annotation set up for profile view. Profiles work a little bit differently. But one thing you'll notice is if I want to annotate this node, I don't have my pipes shown, right? Because the pipes actually ended, before the slice. So let me jump forward here a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place a label here, and you're gonna see I'm gonna choose the same label, see profile / cross section for drainage node. Those are same. You do the same annotation for profile and cross section, right? So I'm gonna select that. I'm gonna select my node. Now you have to make sure that you actually have the node selected, or the label won't know what element you're trying to tie to. So you gotta make sure you do have that node selected. Oh man, my bad. So after you have it selected, in the section, I will say it's a little bit laggy. You'll notice it's a little laggy here. Placing annotation, that's another service request I have in my Bentley. But after you place it, pretty much the same thing here, but we don't have the connected pipes, right? Just like in profiles, we have to add those in. So what we can do is we need to basically temporarily show that pipe so that we can get the properties from that pipe using a text favorite, right? We need to be able to select that pipe. So the way we can achieve that is selecting our name boundary here in our 3D model. And if we go and look at the properties of it, we can change the clip depth forward and backwards. So I'm going to change the back depth up 2.5 feet. So it's basically widening my clip. Instead of being a thin slice, it's now a thick slice, right? So your cross section is going to start look weird. You got multiple, things going on because it's a thick slice. But what we do see is we now see that pipe. So now that I see that pipe, I can come in here and I can add that text favorite just like I did in the profile view. Again, you have to know if it's the start or the end of the pipe. So I'm going to come down here and select that. So pipe end or pipe start, you have to know that. So the back clip, that's basically going back station. So if you know the direction of your station, then you know which which pipe is being shown by the back or the forward clip. So I'm going to put that text favorite in there. Again, I'm going to reassign those fields back to that pipe. And then I'm going to come back to my name boundary, and I'm going to show the clip depth the other way. So I'm going to, oh, I keep using my scroll wheel. My bad, guys. Jump forward there. So a little bit too far. So after you reassign, and I'm still too far. So a little bit more. So now I'm getting rid of the back depth and I'm adding in the forward depth. So now I'm going to see that forward pipe. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add that text favorite. I'm going to reassign the fields to that pipe. Excuse me. Jump forward a little bit. So we're going to reassign to this pipe now. And then I'm going to come back to my name boundary and I'm going to get rid of that depth. Okay, so now we see those properties. Okay. So now for other cross sections, I'm going to jump over. I'm going to just change my view setup to view a different model. And so this one just shows a pipe. So this one, we do have a different text favorite since we don't show like the slope like we do in a profile. So if you go to the cross section drainage pipe, there's a proposed and existing one. And those are pretty much just gonna pull the size and then the type. So again, it's still it's a little sluggish in the cross section for some reason, but there, that's how you can kind of annotate those pipes like that. Just so again, type B is coming from that notes property. Okay, that is cross section. So there, I kind of went over annotating plane profile cross section. I know that it's not perfect, especially with having to switch it to plain text just to print it because of that. Whenever you're cross reference, the only other option is to just do all your sheets inside your drainage base map because then you're not a cross reference, which I can't see people really doing that. But that would alleviate that text field update issue. I got a couple more slides real fast here, and then we'll open up to questions here. So what text favorites do we have out there? I put this slide in here to kind of show you everything we have out there, and it kind of gives you the format and then an example of what it kind of looks like. I probably will put this out as an Excel file when I push out the new dgen lib, but these are technically already out there for use. They've been out there for months. Another one thing I want to call out about annotation is going to look a little different, especially like the station offset. Right now, I can't do left or right. That is an enhancement that I have pretty high priority with Bentley, so that we can label these left or right. Right now, it's just going to be positive or negative. So if you don't like that, you're going to have to just key it in. But they are going to look a little different. But I really want to call out this elevation is it's really important that you guys know what the start and stop of a pipe is, or you're gonna call out the wrong elevation. I know that part sucks. That's also another enhancement I have in with Bentley to basically expose all that information on the node, because then that opens the door to just annotate everything off the element, which is really what I'm trying to get to, so that you don't have to do any work. You really just select your elements and they just annotate. We'll get there. Okay, so what if I didn't use Civil AccuDraw, right? So what if I didn't use Civil AccuDraw? How the heck am I going to get station offset? So I have created these unformatted text favorites, and they're going to look like this. And basically, I guess I'll start the video here. So what I plan on using in the future is once I get a bug fix, so we don't have to worry if you placed it with Civil AccuDraw anymore. That's what we're trying to work to. Is I don't care how it's placed. Like if it's existing and I extracted it from element, obviously I won't use Civil AccuDraw. So I don't want my annotation to be dependent on how I placed it, right? So Bentley has in the software the capability to add a station offset reference to your nodes. So if I select this node and I look at the properties, there's a station offset reference, which I already set. But you can click on that property, click the three dots, and go select an alignment. You can create a selection set, like select all your nodes, and then you can bulk set it all to one alignment at one time to save some time. But once you have that assigned, that node now has ability to annotate, station, and offset, but I can't format it. So that's why I added this unformatted text favorites. So if I come in and place a text favorite here or a label, let me jump forward a little bit as we're running out of time. So if I jump forward here, I'm going to place a label. And so now I'm going to choose that one of those unformatted options right there. So there's unformatted option. So, and then you have one for manhole as well. So what these unformatted ones, instead of using that civil AccuDraw station offset for the properties, it's actually going to pull that station offset reference that we just added. But you notice it's formatted as a number and not as a station. So that is a simple formatting thing, a bug that I have in with Bentley. Hopefully they get that fixed in the next release, because then we could just switch to using that. And we don't have to worry about civil AccuDraw anymore. So the workflow is you can use this to get the value, so you don't have to go and look up the values, and then you can just type over it. Not great, but I guess that's the best I could come up with if you didn't use civil AccuDraw. So eventually I'd like to go that way completely once I get that formatting fixed. But that hopefully that gives you guys something to go with, just in case you didn't use civil AccuDraw. I get that a lot. I didn't use civil AccuDraw. How am I going to annotate, station, offset? And I know nobody wants to go and like hand or look up or what station was that. So this kind of gets you the values at least, and then you just got to type over it. Now, again, when you type over it, it's no longer dynamic. So definitely a lot of stopgaps here to get us going. Hopefully in the next release or so, all these things get cleared up and it's smooth sailing. Hopefully you guys, this is beneficial to you guys. I'll open up to questions now. I'm sure you guys probably have lots of questions. So if you guys are muted, you can unmute yourself. You guys can use the chat. But that's kind of what I have. I am working on documentation. So I think I'm up to like almost 30 pages for drainage document, in case you guys don't want to see videos and you want to work through a document. Going through a lot of what I showed just now. So I still got a little more work to finish that up. I thought I would be done with that so we could push it out. I do plan on adding it to our ORD training manual as well as another chapter in there to help kind of get that in with the initial ORD training, so you guys see a little bit of this stuff. So anybody have any questions?
Hey, JD, this is Ian Colai from District 1.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay. On those storm sewer profiles, do we have a workflow to add like crossing utilities to it?
So the utilities, it's the same kind of method that I showed with profile runs and projecting profile runs, or doing a 3D cut. So if it's crossing it, anything that crosses that 3D cut. So part of the documentation that I'm putting together, I'm also going over utilities. So it's pretty much the same workflows. Now I do have another defect in or enhancement with Bentley right now that I'm waiting a response on. Because right now, what I don't like is that I can't show a utility with one line on the profile. So it's seeing it as a pipe. So it's drawing like the top and bottom of the pipe like we do for drainage. But for a simple electric line, we don't really want to see two lines, right? So that is my biggest problem with the utilities right now, is it's showing that as like a 3D pipe. I just need a line. So I wanted the profile run. I wanted to use the profile run instead, like I showed for the drainage on the, but for some reason it's not following the conduit. It's just kind of drawing up straight. So that's what I have in with Bentley, see if I have a setting wrong or something. So I am addressing that in the documentation. Yeah, but it's pretty much all the same tools, same exact way. Just right now it just looks weird because it's showing 2 lines on your profile.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
So I know already 2020 release 3. I showed that here. There are a lot of things added there. I was a little disappointed that some of those fixes weren't in there. So I am still reviewing it, but I don't know when we'll get to 2020 release 3 just yet. There seems like there's some more level display problems. So still got to work through those a little bit more, but I do like some of the things they've added in 2020 release 3. But I know drainage is a hot area for a lot of people. So I'm trying my best to get you guys workflows to keep going here. I really wish I get some of these thing enhancements, and then it would be a lot easier. Will there be standard 3D head wall nodes in the update you are pushing out? So the head walls, there are some already in there. We've kind of been making them as requests come in. I think we got behind. I have 2 requests that came in probably a month or 2 ago that just kind of fell off our radar now that you say that. So the way we've been handling head walls is, since there's so many variations of head walls, we're just going to make them as the requests come in as you need them. Now, when we get it intern in here, we were going to have them, start, bulk creating a bunch of them to get them all created. But right now it's a slow front. So if you need a head wall, just submit a service request of exactly which one you need, what sizes you need, and we can generate that and push it out.
Hey, JD, I don't remember if you mentioned it earlier, but it's probably worth mentioning that 2020 release 3 also has a schema change. So, gotta
Yeah,
be careful.
I should mention that. Another big thing with moving to 2020 release 3 is a schema change. Thanks, Matt. So what that means is it's not compatible with the previous versions. So we're going to definitely be more cautious before we push that out. So you guys should all be on 2020 release 1. There is 2020 release 2 out. Not a compatibility issues. Jack, Kerstetter, and IT we should be close to pushing that to you guys' machines soon here, so you guys will get that update. But yeah, that is a compatibility issue. So every other update Bentley has right now is they're changing the schema. So every 2 updates, we're going to be a little more cautious before pushing that out. All right, well, if there's no questions, hopefully you guys got a lot out of this one. We'll definitely be probably having another webinar on drainage as we get some fixes. I'll be getting those documents out there. I'll be adding a whole bunch of videos to the wiki page for the individual things I showed today, so you don't have to scour through an hour-and-a-half long meeting. So a lot more content's gonna come out on drainage. If you guys run into issues, having problems, please reach out. Let me know. See if we can come up with workflows to keep you guys going. So until then, see you guys next month. If you guys have topics you want us to present on for the next month's open topic, please email it to us. The sooner the better. If you email it too late, we probably won't have enough time to actually prepare to show it. So if you guys have topics or problems you guys like us to show on, please email them to us. All right, but I guess we'll see you guys next month.